When a black woman in a bright yellow suit stepped up to the airport counter, she had no idea her calm smile would ignite the downfall of an entire travel empire. The agent behind the desk sneered, mocking her African accent loud enough for everyone in line to hear. Laughter followed, cruel, humiliating. But what no one knew was that the woman they just insulted wasn't an ordinary passenger. She was the founder of a $950 million travel group, and this very airport had just signed a long-term contract with her company. By the time the video went viral, the agent's smirk vanished, and the entire airport's management would soon face the most devastating corporate exodus in its history. The automatic doors of JFK International Airport slid open as Dr. Amara Thompson stepped inside, rolling her sleek silver suitcase behind her. The late afternoon sunlight followed her in, glinting off her bright yellow suit, bold, confident, and graceful, much like the woman herself. Her flight to London was in 3 hours, but Amara always arrived early. Years of running a global business had taught her the value of patience and precision. She adjusted her silk scarf and glanced around the bustling terminal. Travelers rushing, children laughing, announcements echoing overhead. It was business as usual, until it wasn't. Amara walked toward the first-class check-in desk of Skyjet Airlines, one of the partners of her company, the Atlas Group, a $950 million travel conglomerate that specialized in luxury tourism and corporate air logistics. Her company handled premium clients, VIP bookings, and high-end travel packages across 5 continents. And ironically, Skyjet Airlines was one of their biggest partners. She stopped at the counter and smiled politely at the woman behind the desk, a mid-30s airport agent with neatly tied blonde hair and a badge that read, "Karen, Customer Assistance." "Good afternoon," Amara said warmly, her accent a gentle blend of Nigerian English and British refinement. "I'm checking in for Flight 409 to London, please." Karen looked up briefly, her smile tight. "Passport?" Amara handed it over. Karen flipped through it, her eyes skimming the details. Then she frowned, her tone sharp. "You're flying first class?" "Yes," Amara replied calmly. "Booked under Atlas Corporate." Karen tilted her head, looking Amara up and down. Her tone turned condescending. "Oh, you work for them?" Amara smiled again. "Actually, I own them." A pause. Then Karen gave a small chuckle. "The kind people use when they don't believe you but want to seem polite." "Right," she said sarcastically, tapping on her keyboard. "So, Miss Atlas, where did you say you're flying to again?" Amara didn't react to the tone. "London Heathrow." Karen squinted, pretending not to understand. "What was that?" "Can you say it again slowly?" "You have a bit of an accent," her voice carried, loud enough for the passengers nearby to hear. A few turned their heads. One man snickered. Amara's smile faltered slightly, but she kept her composure. "London Heathrow," she repeated clearly but softly. Karen exaggeratedly nodded. "Right, Heathrow." "Got it." She smirked, glancing at her colleague at the next desk, who was struggling to hide a laugh. The moment stung. Not because Amara hadn't faced it before, but because no matter how high she climbed, some people still saw her as less. Her degrees, her billions, her influence, all invisible in the eyes of someone blinded by prejudice. She watched silently as Karen continued typing, slowly, deliberately, dragging out the process. The other agent finished 2 customers while Karen still checked Amara's details. Then Karen looked up, her expression smug. "There seems to be a problem with your ticket," Amara frowned. "A problem?" "Yes," Karen said. "It looks like your payment verification failed. Maybe your company card didn't go through?" She tilted her head, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "You might want to check with your boss," Amara exhaled slowly. She'd been patient, gracious even, but now she could feel her dignity being toyed with. "I don't have a boss," Amara said firmly. "And there's no problem with the card. Please recheck your system." Karen rolled her eyes and leaned back. "Ma'am, please don't raise your voice. I'm just doing my job." Amara wasn't raising her voice, not even close. But Karen had raised hers, loudly enough to draw attention. From a nearby supervisor and a few curious travelers who began whispering, Amara noticed a young man at the far end, an intern in a Skyjet jacket, recording the scene on his phone. Karen noticed too. And instead of stopping, she leaned closer, her tone taunting. Maybe you people should learn how to book flights properly. This isn't the local bus. Amara blinked. Once, twice. A mix of disbelief and quiet fury crossed her face. You people. She repeated. Karen gave a fake laugh. Relax, I didn't mean it like that. Don't be so sensitive. Amara straightened, her voice cool as glass. Call your manager, please, Karen scoffed. My manager's busy. You'll have to wait. I'll wait, Amara replied. But I'll also make one phone call while I do. Karen shrugged. Suit yourself. Amara reached into her handbag and took out her phone. Her movements were calm, almost slow. But there was a sharpness to them now. Within seconds, she dialed a number marked Atlas HQ, New York. Hello, it's Dr. Thompson, she said quietly. Please inform legal and PR that we've had an incident at JFK. Skyjet agent, front desk, Terminal B. Yes, record it. I'll forward footage shortly. Karen blinked, her smugness fading just a little. Amara hung up, then turned her calm gaze back to her. Since your manager is busy, I'll wait right here. You may continue helping other passengers. By now, a few travelers had started whispering. Some had recognized Amara, the face from Forbes, Time, and CNN Business. The woman who built a global travel group from scratch, empowering hundreds of African and minority-owned agencies worldwide. And yet here she was, being humiliated at her own partner airline's counter. A man approached, the floor supervisor. Ma'am, is there an issue here? Before Amara could respond, Karen jumped in. Yes, she's being difficult. Her card failed and she's refusing to accept it. The supervisor looked at Amara's passport. His eyes widened. Dr. Thompson. Karen blinked. Wait, you know her? The supervisor's voice dropped instantly into apology. Dr. Thompson, I'm so sorry. Well, please, one moment. I'll handle this immediately. He took over the terminal, typing quickly. Within seconds, the screen flashed green. Your ticket is perfectly valid, he said, his face tight with embarrassment. Amara simply nodded. I know, Karen's mouth fell slightly open. Wait, what? But you made a mistake. The supervisor cut her off, glaring at her. A very big one. The nearby intern's phone was still recording. Every second, every word. Amara turned, ready to walk away, but paused. She looked back at Karen and said softly, I built my business so people from every background could travel without being judged. But apparently even that isn't enough to change hearts like yours. Then she walked away, her heels clicking on the marble floor, steady, unshaken. 2 hours later, in the Skyjet executive lounge, Amara sat quietly near the window, sipping her tea. Her assistant, Naomi, rushed over with a phone in hand. Dr. Thompson, Naomi whispered urgently. The video from the terminal is trending. 2 million views in under an hour. The tag accent matters is everywhere, Amara sighed. I expected that, Naomi hesitated. Skyjet's corporate office just called. They want to discuss the misunderstanding. Amara's face was unreadable. Misunderstanding? She repeated slowly. Yes, Naomi said. They're saying Karen didn't mean to be racist. She was just stressed. Amara placed her cup down, her tone still calm but laced with quiet power. Naomi, prepare a statement. Effective immediately, Atlas Group is suspending all bookings and partnerships with Skyjet Airlines until further notice. Naomi froze. That's over 150 million in annual contracts. I'm aware, Amara said simply, but some things are worth more than profit. She stood, adjusted her scarf, and looked out the window as planes took off into the sky. They thought my accent made me small. Let's remind them what my name means. Back at Skyjet headquarters, within hours, panic erupted. Calls flooded in from executives, investors, and media outlets. The hashtag #Vaux accent matters climbed to the top of Twitter, and LinkedIn. News anchors replayed the footage. Karen mocking Amara's accent. Her saying, you people. The humiliation? Caught in perfect clarity. The backlash was immediate and devastating. Skyjet's PR team scrambled to release a statement. We are investigating an isolated incident and do not condone discriminatory behavior of any kind. But it was too late. The Atlas, Group's official press release dropped like thunder across every business channel. Effective immediately, the Atlas Group has terminated all business partnerships and travel contracts with Skyjet Airlines due to a breach of ethical conduct and corporate responsibility. Within minutes, other companies followed suit, firms that respected Amara, firms that had long partnered with her. The domino effect began. The stock price fell. Investors panicked. Airport executives called emergency meetings, and all because one woman thought mocking another's accent was harmless. Meanwhile, back home. That evening, Amara returned to her penthouse in Manhattan. She stood on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker like constellations below. Naomi joined her, holding a tablet. Dr. Thompson, every major network is covering it. People are calling it the accent revolution. You've become a global symbol for dignity and respect in travel. Amara smiled faintly. I didn't want to start a revolution, she said softly. I just wanted to board my flight. Naomi hesitated. What do we do next? Amara turned, her eyes firm. We build something better. An airline where every traveler feels seen, heard and respected, no matter how they speak, the guy. World didn't know it yet. But that single humiliating moment at the check-in, Counter was about to reshape the entire global travel industry, because Dr. Amara Thompson wasn't just any woman. She was a woman who turned pain into purpose and disrespect into the spark for a $950 million corporate exodus that would shake the skies themselves. The next morning, the sun rose over Manhattan, but for Skyjet Airlines, the dawn brought nothing but chaos. At 7:14 a.m., the CEO, Richard Hanley, stood in his glass-walled office overlooking the city skyline, phone pressed tightly to his ear. His tie was loose, his tone urgent. Amara, Dr. Thompson, please, let's talk about this. We're deeply sorry. It was a single employee, a misunderstanding. Amara's voice on the other end was calm, deliberate. A misunderstanding? Richard, your employee, mocked my accent, belittled my heritage, and represented your company in full uniform. You didn't hire one woman. You hired a reflection of your values, he tried to interrupt. But she continued. You've already lost Atlas. What you should worry about now is who's leaving next. Then she hung up. Richard exhaled sharply and turned toward his assistant. Get legal on the line, and someone tell me how bad the numbers are. The assistant hesitated. Sir, we've lost 12 corporate clients since last night. 5 more just suspended their contracts pending an ethics review. Richard rubbed his temples. How much are we talking? Over $300 million. He froze. In one night? The assistant nodded, pale. And it's trending everywhere. CNN, Forbes, BBC. They're calling it the accent fallout. 4:45 a.m. Atlas Group headquarters. While Skyjet scrambled, the Atlas Group tower buzzed with quiet efficiency. No panic, no chaos. Just movement. Organized, purposeful. Amara walked through the executive floor surrounded by her core team. Naomi, her assistant. David, her PR strategist. And Maya, head of corporate ethics. Naomi held a folder. We've received over 4,000 supportive messages overnight. People are sharing their own stories about being mocked for how they speak. Amara nodded. Pain has a voice. We're just giving it a platform. David looked up from his tablet. Media wants a statement. They're asking if this is a boycott. Amara stopped walking. No, she said firmly.
This isn't a boycott.
It's accountability. We're not punishing them. We're proving a point. Maya smiled faintly. You're making history, you know that? Amara gave a small laugh. I'm just tired of history repeating itself. 30 a.m. The internet erupts by mid-morning. The world was divided and deeply engaged. The video from the airport now had over 30 million views. Hashtags like Our Accent Matters, Our Respect Voices, and I Stand With Amara flooded every social platform. Clips of Amara's calm composure played side by side with Karen's smirk. Memes, interviews, think pieces, the internet was ablaze. In Lagos, students marched carrying signs reading, Our voices aren't a joke. In London, business leaders called for corporate inclusivity audits. And in New York, people began leaving one-star reviews on Skyjet's app, crashing its customer service system overnight. Meanwhile, Karen's name had been leaked. Her Facebook was deleted. Her Instagram gone, but screenshots of her earlier posts surfaced, a few with racially insensitive jokes, confirming the public's worst suspicions. A.M. Karen's apartment. Karen sat on her couch, wrapped in a blanket, her phone buzzing nonstop. Her mother's voice trembled over speaker. "Karen, what did you do?" "I didn't mean it like that," Karen cried. "She was rude, Mom." "I was just—" Her mother interrupted. "You mocked a woman on camera, Karen, and that woman is richer and more powerful than everyone you've ever met combined." Tears welled in Karen's eyes. She turned on the TV. Every channel replayed her face, frozen mid-smirk, the moment before everything fell apart. The anchor's voice narrated, "The Skyjet employee seen mocking Dr. Amara Thompson's accent has reportedly been suspended as the airline faces severe backlash and financial collapse." Karen covered her face, sobbing. "Tomamad PM. Emergency board meeting at Skyjet. The boardroom was in shambles, executives shouting, papers scattered, phones ringing non-stop." Richard slammed his hand on the table. "Enough! Everyone quiet down!" The room fell silent. He turned to the CFO. "Where are we with losses?" "Sir, Atlas Group has officially pulled 17 international routes. Their affiliates, Meridian Travel, Crown Fly, and Oceanic Logistics, have also withdrawn." Richard leaned back, eyes hollow. "That's nearly half our global partnerships." Another board member spoke up. "The public's furious. They're canceling flights, demanding refunds. Our stock's down 37% in 8 hours." Someone else added, "We need to issue a direct apology to Dr. Thompson, publicly." "Not a statement. From you," Richard hesitated. "You're suggesting I go on live TV and—" "Yes," the legal head said. "You have no choice." He looked out the window, thinking. "Fine, schedule it. But I want her to know we mean it." He didn't know that Amara had already made her next move. PM. Atlas Group. Private boardroom. Amara sat at the long mahogany table surrounded by senior advisors. The air was focused but calm. "We've received hundreds of partnership inquiries," Naomi reported. "Airlines, hotels, even tourism ministries want to collaborate. They're calling you a symbol of corporate courage." Amara nodded slowly. "Courage isn't about shouting back. It's about walking away." David leaned forward. "Do you want to respond to Skyjet's apology?" Amara sipped her water, thoughtful. "Not yet. Let them speak first. Let the world see who they are without us." She stood, walking toward the window, gazing down at the city below. "We'll launch something new, an initiative that protects every traveler from discrimination, no matter where they're from or how they sound." Maya smiled. "What do you have in mind?" Amara turned, her eyes bright. "Project Voice, a certification system for airlines and hotels. They must complete inclusivity training and prove cultural respect before partnering with us." Naomi gasped. "That could redefine travel ethics." "Exactly," Amara said. "Let's make it happen." Next PM. Skyjet's public apology across the world, screens lit up with breaking news. Richard Hanley appeared before a wall of microphones. His expression was solemn, his voice carefully measured. "We at Skyjet Airlines sincerely apologize to Dr. Amara Thompson and anyone who has ever felt disrespected for their voice, heritage, or background. The behavior displayed by our employee was unacceptable and does not reflect our values." As he spoke, the live chat exploded with comments. "Too late. They're only sorry because they're losing money. Where was this energy yesterday?" But one clip stood out. A side-by-side edit of Richard's speech and Amara's calm statement from the lounge earlier that morning. Her composure versus his desperation. Her power versus his apology. The internet crowned its verdict. PM. Amara's home office. Naomi entered quietly. "Dr. Thompson, you should see this." She handed her a tablet. A video was trending, a Skyjet pilot speaking out anonymously. "We've had passengers mocked before. Accents, hijabs, wheelchairs, and it happens. But this time, someone powerful finally said enough." "Thank you, Dr. Thompson." Amara's expression softened. She turned off the tablet and whispered, "That's why this matters." Naomi hesitated. "You know, the UN just invited you to speak at their Global Business Forum next month. They want you to address diversity in corporate leadership." Amara smiled. Then that's where we'll announce Project Voice. The next morning, Skyjet's collapse. It started with one headline. Atlas Group clients suspend Skyjet bookings worldwide. Then another. Airport partners reconsider contracts after accent scandal. By noon, Skyjet's website crashed under refund requests. Lines formed at airports. Shares plummeted another 25%. Richard stared at the TV, speechless. "We're finished," he whispered. The PR director entered nervously. "Sir, Karen gave an interview this morning." He turned. "She what?" The director played the clip. Karen, sitting under harsh studio lights, tear-streaked but still defensive. "I didn't mean to be racist. I just couldn't understand her accent." She overreacted. "People are ruining my life for one mistake." Richard buried his face in his hands. "That's it. We're done." Meanwhile, in Nigeria, thousands gathered outside Atlas Africa HQ. The crowd chanted Amara's name, waving signs that read, "Our accent, our pride." Inside, Amara joined via live video from New York. She smiled as she saw the sea of faces on screen. Young, old, hopeful. "Today isn't about anger," she said through the mic. "It's about identity. Every voice carries a story, and every story deserves respect." The crowd erupted in applause. Later that night, global news broadcast. The anchor's tone was steady, but reverent. In just 48 hours, Dr. Amara Thompson has not only cost Skyjet nearly $1 billion in contracts, but also sparked a worldwide conversation about linguistic bias and cultural respect. Her initiative, Project Voice, is now being adopted by several major airlines. Clips played of people from around the world saying lines like, "I used to hide my accent in interviews. I'm proud of how I sound. Thank you, Dr. Thompson." At midnight, Amara sat alone in her office. The city was quiet, except for the faint hum of traffic below. She opened her laptop and read an email from Richard Hanley. "Dr. Thompson, I understand we've lost your partnership, but I want to personally thank you. You've forced us to look in the mirror. We're implementing full inclusivity reform. If there's ever a way to earn your trust again, we'll try." Amara closed the laptop and whispered to herself, "Good. That's how real change begins." She looked out at the night sky, planes blinking across the horizon, symbols of freedom, movement, and connection. "Everyone's voice deserves a seat on those planes," she murmured. And as dawn approached again, her phone buzzed with another notification. Breaking news. Project E. Voice receives $50 million in global funding from 3 major airlines and the United Nations Travel Council. Amara smiled. The same voice that was mocked for its accent had just reshaped the sound of global travel forever. 3 weeks had passed since the airport incident, but the world was still talking about it. What had begun as a single moment of humiliation had exploded into a global reckoning, one that no corporation could ignore. Skyjet Airlines was now on the brink of collapse. Their offices, once buzzing with staff, were now half empty. Their call centers flooded with angry customers demanding answers, while former partners scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal. Inside the boardroom, CEO Richard Hanley sat at the head of a long table surrounded by tired executives. The walls were lined with screens showing red numbers, losses, refunds, cancellations. "This isn't just bad press anymore," said the CFO. "This is extinction." Richard rubbed his forehead. "What about our investor outreach? Did the Dubai Group confirm funding?" "They pulled out," the legal advisor said grimly. "They said the company's ethics reputation makes it too risky." Richard slammed his hand on the table. "One employee. One stupid moment and this happens." His PR head looked up cautiously. "It wasn't just the moment, sir. It was the response." Dr. Thompson's calm made her the hero. "Your silence made you the villain." Richard glared at her, but deep down, he knew she was right. He turned to his communications chief. "We need a way to repair this. Something big, something public." "There's a global business forum next week," the man said hesitantly. "Dr. Thompson will be speaking. If you attend and offer a public partnership with her Project Voice, it might show goodwill." Richard hesitated. She'd never agree. "Maybe not," the PR chief said, "but the world will see you try." Richard stared out the window, his reflection pale against the city lights. "Book my ticket." 1 week later, the Global Business Forum, Geneva. The Grand Hall glittered under chandeliers, filled with journalists, CEOs, diplomats, and global leaders. Flags from dozens of nations lined the walls, and the stage bore a single phrase in gold letters: "Equality in the voice of business." Cameras flashed as Dr. Amara Thompson entered. Dressed in a white suit and pearl earrings, she walked with quiet confidence. No security, no entourage, just presence. Naomi leaned in and whispered, "Half the media's here for you." Amara smiled. "Then let's give them something worth hearing." When her name was announced, the applause was thunderous. Amara stepped to the podium, the spotlight falling gently on her face. She began softly, her voice warm but commanding. "3 weeks ago, a woman mocked my accent at an airport. She didn't see my degree, my success, or my humanity. She only heard difference, and to her, difference meant less." The room was silent. "But this isn't about me. This is about every person who's ever been told their voice doesn't belong. Every immigrant, every traveler, every worker who's had to hide their heritage just to be heard." Her tone deepened. "When we mock an accent, we mock a journey. And when we silence a voice, we silence a story that the world may desperately need." Cameras zoomed in as tears glistened in the eyes of people across the audience. "That's why I started Project Voice. It's not a campaign. It's a promise that in our companies, in our airports, in our conversations, everyone deserves to be treated with dignity." She paused, then smiled softly. "Even those who once mocked us, because progress isn't revenge. It's transformation." The hall erupted in applause, long, thunderous, emotional. But among the clapping, one man slowly stood up, Richard Hanley. His sudden appearance drew gasps from the crowd. Cameras swiveled toward him. He walked toward the stage, holding a microphone, his face solemn. "Dr. Thompson," he said, voice steady but humble. "You don't know me personally, but I'm the CEO of Skyjet Airlines, the company that failed you and failed millions of people watching that video," the crowd murmured. "I came here not to defend what happened, but to surrender to the truth you've made us all face. We built an empire on travel, yet forgot the human spirit behind every ticket. You reminded us," he turned to the audience. "Today, I announce that Skyjet Airlines will adopt Project Voice globally, not as an apology, but as reform. We will fund inclusivity training for every employee, from ground staff to board executives." He looked back at Amara. "We'd be honored if you would help us rebuild, not as a partner in profit, but as a teacher of change." The hall went silent. Every camera in the room locked onto Amara's face. Her expression was unreadable, poised, still. Finally, she stepped closer, took the second microphone, and said, "Change begins when power chooses humility. I accept your intention of not for you, but for those who will come after you." The applause that followed was deafening, a standing ovation that lasted nearly 2 minutes. Later that evening, backstage, Richard approached Amara privately. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You didn't have to accept," Amara smiled faintly. "I didn't accept your apology. I accepted your effort," he nodded, understanding. "We're shutting down the terminal office where it happened. Rebuilding from scratch. Good," she said simply. "Let that space remind your company that progress must be built, not announced." He looked at her, then chuckled softly. "You're a tough woman, Dr. Thompson." Amara smiled. "I had to be." Meanwhile, a small apartment in Queens Karen sat at her kitchen table, watching the forum live stream on her laptop. Her face was pale, her eyes tired. She hadn't worked in weeks, couldn't step outside without whispers following her. When Amara spoke the words, "Progress isn't revenge," something in Karen's chest cracked open. Tears fell silently down her cheeks. She replayed the video, the same one that had ruined her life, watching her own cruelty through fresh eyes. For the first time, she saw not just what she'd said, but what it had meant. The next morning, she wrote an email, addressed to Dr. Amara Thompson. "Dear Dr. Thompson, I don't expect forgiveness, but I want to thank you. You could have destroyed me completely, but instead, you taught me what respect truly means. I've joined a community center that helps immigrants learn English, not to change how they sound, but to celebrate where they come from. I'll carry this lesson forever. Karen. She hit send. 2 weeks later, Atlas Group headquarters, Naomi entered Amara's office holding a tablet. Dr. Thompson, you might want to read this. Amara took it. It was Karen's email. She read it quietly, her face softening. After a long pause, she said, "She learned faster than most companies ever will." Naomi smiled. "So what now?" Amara looked out the window, the city glowing under the morning sun. "Now, we expand Project Voice globally. Let's certify airports, cruise lines, even schools. Let's make respect a policy, not a preference." Naomi grinned. "Already drafting the expansion plan." Amara nodded, then glanced at the framed photo on her desk. Her late mother, who used to tell her, "Your voice is your crown. Never bow your head for anyone who mocks it." She whispered softly, "You were right, Mama. Final turning point, global impact. In the following months, Project Voice became a worldwide movement. Airlines across Europe, Africa, and Asia adopted the certification. Luxury hotels displayed the Voice Respect certified badge proudly in their lobbies. Documentaries were made. Panels held. The story of a black woman mocked for her accent had become a lesson in leadership, empathy, and global equality. Amara appeared on the cover of Time magazine. The headline reading, "The Woman Who Changed How the World Listens." In the interview, she said, "Accents don't make people difficult to understand. They make people worth understanding." Epilogue, a flight years later. 5 years later, on a sunny morning flight from Lagos to Paris, a young Nigerian woman boarded a Skyjet plane. She smiled nervously as she approached the check-in counter. The agent, a young white woman, beamed. "Good morning." "Welcome to Skyjet. May I have your passport?" The girl nodded, speaking softly in her accent. "Yes, ma'am." The agent replied warmly. "Your accent is beautiful. My mom's from Ireland. She sounds just like you when she's excited." The girl's face lit up. "Thank you." On the wall behind them hung a small gold plaque, certified by Project Voice, respect in every language. As the girl walked toward her gate, she didn't know that the woman who made that plaque possible was sitting quietly in the first-class lounge nearby, smiling. Content. Amara looked up from her tea, watching the travelers move gracefully through the terminal. So many voices, so many accents, none mocked, none silenced. Naomi leaned over and whispered, "You see what you started?" Amara smiled. "I didn't start it. I just reminded the world to listen." And as the flight announcement echoed across the speakers, her name was mentioned in a tone of admiration and gratitude. The same world that once laughed at her accent now echoed it with respect. The world moved on, but it moved differently now. In airports, on planes, in hotels and corporate offices, something had changed. People listened more carefully. They spoke more gently. And they began to see what they once ignored. What started as a humiliating moment for one woman had become the birth of global empathy. A shift felt across every corner of the travel industry. 3 months later, United Nations. Business Summit, New York. The Grand Hall was filled with diplomats, CEOs and world leaders. Cameras flashed as Dr. Amara Thompson stepped onto the blue-carpeted stage. Behind her, a massive digital screen displayed the words, Project Voice, respect in every language. The moderator smiled. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the woman who turned an insult into an international reform." The applause that followed was unlike any before, not just for her fame, but for what she had awakened in people. Amara adjusted the microphone and began softly, her accent ringing proudly through the room. "I was once told that my voice was hard to understand. But I've learned that what people really struggle to understand is equality." A ripple of applause echoed through the crowd. When that airport agent mocked me, I had 2 choices, to react with anger or respond with purpose. I chose the second because dignity isn't something you beg for. It's something you stand on, even when the ground shakes beneath you. Her eyes scanned the crowd. Presidents, CEOs, activists, and students alike. Today, more than 300 companies, 15 airlines and 47 countries have joined Project Voice. Together, we've trained over 500,000 employees to serve with respect, not judgment. The audience listened in awe. "I'm not here to celebrate my success," she continued. "I'm here to remind you, our voices carry our stories, and our stories build the world." When she finished, the entire room stood. It wasn't just applause, it was a promise that her voice would never again be silenced. Same day. A conversation with the press after the summit. Amara stood before a crowd of reporters, her assistant Naomi at her side. "Dr. Thompson," one journalist asked, "some people say you destroyed a company just to make a point. How do you respond to that?" Amara smiled faintly. "I didn't destroy anything. Truth did. All I did was stop protecting people from the consequences of their own choices." Another reporter raised her hand. "What would you say to people who still believe accents make communication difficult?" Amara tilted her head slightly, her tone gentle but firm. "Language is about connection, not perfection. If you can understand kindness, then you can understand anyone." Her words rippled through social media within hours. "Understand kindness" trended worldwide. Meanwhile, Karen's new beginning. Far from the spotlight, in a quiet community center in Queens, Karen was finishing a class on language inclusion. She stood before a group of immigrants, mothers, students, taxi drivers, all practicing English in their beautiful array of tones and rhythms. Karen smiled warmly. "Remember, never apologize for your accent. It means you speak more than one language. That's a gift." The class clapped, and one woman hugged her after. "You understand us," the woman said. "You don't laugh." Karen's eyes watered. "I used to," she admitted softly. "But I learned better." She looked at a small framed photo on her desk, Amara speaking at the Geneva Forum, and whispered, "Thank you." 6 months later, Skyjet's rival Skyjet Airlines was different now. Every staff member, from pilots to baggage handlers, had undergone Project Voice training. The walls of every terminal displayed posters with quotes from diverse leaders, including Amara's. A new slogan replaced their old marketing lines. "The world sounds beautiful when you listen." Financially, they were recovering slowly, but their reputation was reborn stronger than ever. Passengers praised their new culture. Employees felt proud again, and in an unexpected move, Skyjet made Amara an honorary consultant, unpaid, symbolic, to continue guiding their inclusivity mission. When asked why she accepted, she said simply, "Forgiveness is the highest form of reform." 2 years later, the Atlas Foundation. By now, Amara's empire had evolved beyond travel. She founded the Atlas Foundation for Global Dignity, a non-profit focused on empowering young women, refugees, and minority entrepreneurs. Naomi entered her office one morning holding a file. "Dr. Thompson, we just hit our milestone. 5,000 scholarships awarded." Amara smiled. "And how many from rural Africa?" "Almost half," Naomi replied. "You've built schools in 3 new countries." Amara looked out the window, the skyline glittering beneath the morning sun. Her company had once moved people across borders. Now it was helping them belong wherever they went. She turned to Naomi. "You know, I used to think travel was about destinations, but now I see it's about voices meeting voices." Naomi smiled. "That's beautiful," Amara laughed softly. "It's truth." The award ceremony, London. On a crisp evening in London, Amara walked onto the stage at the Global Humanitarian Awards. The host's voice filled the grand hall. For her work in transforming the travel industry and championing cultural respect across nations, we honor Dr. Amara Thompson with the Lifetime Impact Award. As the crowd cheered, Amara took the trophy and a crystal globe and looked out at the audience. "When I started this journey," she said, "I only wanted to prove that I belonged. But now I understand. I never had to prove it. I just had to live it." Her voice quivered slightly, emotion rising. "To every person who has ever been told their voice doesn't matter, speak anyway. Because one day your voice might change the world." The audience rose to their feet in thunderous applause, tears glistening across faces of every color, every background. Every accent, a quiet moment, Visiting the past, a few months later, Amara took a trip to JFK Airport, the very place where it all began. The terminal was newly renovated. The counters gleamed. The same spot where Karen once mocked her now held a small plaque on the wall. This space marks the beginning of Project Voice, a global commitment to respect, equality and humanity in travel. In honor of Dr. Amara Thompson, she ran her fingers lightly over the words, smiling to herself. Naomi, standing beside her, whispered, "It's beautiful," Amara nodded. "It's healing." Just then, a young African mother approached nervously, holding her child. "Excuse me," she said softly, her accent thick and melodic. "Are you Dr. Thompson?" Amara smiled warmly. "Yes, I am." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "My son and I are moving to Canada. When people hear my accent, they sometimes laugh. But because of you, I don't hide it anymore." Amara's heart swelled. She bent down to the little boy's level and said, "Never be ashamed of how your mama sounds. Her voice is home." The woman hugged her tightly before boarding her flight. Amara stood still for a moment, the noise of the airport fading behind her. In her eyes, tears shimmered, not of sadness, but of peace. Over the years, Project Voice became a global institution. Schools incorporated it into their language programs. Corporations used it in leadership training. Even governments adopted its principles for diplomatic communication. And yet, Amara remained humble, still starting her mornings with a cup of tea, her scarf perfectly tied, her accent proudly unchanged. One journalist once asked her, "If you could go back and erase that airport encounter, would you?" Amara smiled softly. "No, because sometimes the world needs to break you publicly, so your strength can teach privately. An airport again." But this time it wasn't Amara traveling. It was a young woman in her early 20s, bright-eyed, holding a scholarship certificate that read, "The Atlas Foundation, Global Dignity Scholar." She checked in her flight, speaking confidently in her native Swahili-accented English. The agent smiled at her. "Your accent's lovely. Where are you headed?" "To New York," the girl said proudly. "To study business. I want to build a company like Dr. Amara Thompson." The agent nodded. "Then you're already halfway there." As the girl walked toward her gate, she passed by a large mural on the wall, a painting of Amara in her yellow suit, standing tall with the words, "Respect begins with listening." The girl smiled, touched the edge of the mural, and whispered, "Thank you." Sometimes, change doesn't come from a boardroom, a government, or a revolution. Sometimes it begins with one woman, standing at an airport counter, refusing to shrink when the world tried to belittle her. Her calm became her power, her voice became her victory, and her story reminded the world that respect isn't spoken in one accent. It's spoken in humanity. Airport agent ridicules black woman's accent. Her 950 Malta travel group exits overnight, inspired by true power, true dignity, and a voice that refused to fade.